Hey everybody, welcome to Sweetcast. This is Clint. I've found it very difficult to talk about comics lately, or to just think about comics lately. There's just a lot going on for me personally. I don't even know if you guys like to hear about that stuff, but there's been a lot going on. I'm now working from home. I've got the kids here because they can't go to school. My cell phone is dying. It is on its last leg. And I went this evening, a little bit earlier, I went out to go get a new cell phone. I desperately needed a new cell phone. So I went to the T-Mobile store and they're closed down so that they can practice social distancing. I guess they're going to open up on weird hours. The reason I bring this up is because business is taking a hit. I've mentioned a few times that the economy is going to be, things are going to be bad this year for the economy. And every time I say that, I get somebody in the comment section that's like, no, man, it's a conspiracy. There's not going to be any bad economy. Listen, nothing else matters. The businesses are shutting down. If they can't do business won't be done. There won't be money made. There won't be sales, and sales cures everything in business. So it's struggling. I know I've got a part-time service industry based business that I own, and normally this time of year things are hopping and it's doing really well. I have absolutely no work. Thankfully, I've got a full-time job, so it's fine, not a big deal. But I really feel for small business owners that are depending entirely on that kind of income. It's going to be a rough year for small business owners. And so I want to get specifically into comic book shops. Before I do, let me remind you that Downcast Rise and Fall, this is volume 2 of Downcast, is live on Indiegogo right now. We've passed the 700 number. Now we're over 700 backers. Yeah, if you haven't backed it yet, I strongly suggest you checking it out so you can see how the story ends. And maybe while you're social distancing, you'd be interested to read about blue-collar teens that use the power of gravity to save their father from a corrupt city. All right, so this was on Newsarama about comic books, comic book retailers, comic shops. Let's see, the headline says, comic book retailers share COVID-19 concerns and innovative approaches to managing social distancing. You know, sometimes it takes a disaster for innovation to happen, but I don't think the innovation is going to be going the way that people want it to be going. Brick and mortar is so outdated. It doesn't make a lot of sense in most cases. The internet, it's just superior. On top of that, we've had years now of really poor comic sales numbers for years. And on top of that, you'll have COVID-19. This is the last nail in the coffin. I thought that 2020 would be kind of rough. You know, the market is disrupted. I am telling you that disruption just got turned up to 11. This is not going to be the same. Comic shops are not going to come out of 2020 the way that they existed before 2020. All right, so if we dig into this article, I'm just going to skip down to this first quote. It says, I think this will have a dramatic impact on the market. You think, says Scott Tomlin. Yeah, he's absolutely right. He owns 2 stores, Comics Dungeon in Seattle and Corner Comics in Kirtland, Washington. And that's the epicenter. Okay. He says, many stores are on a razor's edge already. I would expect this to push many stores over the edge. The timing is not good for our industry. Just what I said, not good at all. This is the last nail in the coffin. Small businesses most affected. Yes, this is true. Here, I'm going to just read another quote here, straight from the horse's mouth. These are comic book retailers. He says, if the government mandates closure of small businesses, it's going to seriously impact the whole of the comics business. Now, I got to tell you, it's not if. It is definitely going to happen. I remember having a conversation with my boss Monday last week. I realized I might be a little bit more of a news junkie than most people, but I've been aware of the coronavirus for months now. It kind of worried me, but I didn't really think, I thought it would die out or get under control. I didn't really realize how, it was going to just spread everywhere. But last Monday, I remember having a conversation with my boss, and I said, by this time next week, things are going to be very, very different. And she was surprised that I even said that. And now here we are, 1 week later, and things are very, very different, at least, around where I work. I think in a month from now, things are going to be unrecognizable. And by the way, I'm not a medical expert or anything like that. I'm not going to pretend to be. I'm just saying this is just some guy's opinion, okay, that's into comic books maybe a little bit too much. But I think that things are going to be very different in a month from now. And I'm not just talking about the like medical wise, I'm talking about the economy. It's going to get rough. All right. So it's going to seriously impact businesses. Yeah. Many retailers might be able to go a couple of weeks with no business or greatly reduced sales, but anything more than that, and things will look bleak for a lot of shops. I've done my best to run this business in a responsible way, making sure to have some operating capital, but I really doubt it'll be enough in this if this situation goes on for months. All right, so I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to do, I think, educated speculating, but again, I'm not an expert here, okay? Don't make any medical decisions based off of what I'm saying. But I'm telling you, I've heard people say this is going to last 2 weeks. It's not going to last 2 weeks. This is going to be months of really tough times for the economy. I'm hoping that there will be some good ideas and we'll learn some things, I guess, and there will be better ways to work with the economy that we're given. I'm hoping what this will do is give entrepreneurs a chance to try something else using the internet. I mean, if you're a retailer, forget about creators, okay? Creators, I think there's a route forward, and we're going to get into that a little bit more too. But if you're a retailer, if you're somebody else that's running a business that is surrounding comics, but you're not directly making comics, you've got to find a new way to do this. The brick and mortar system is just so fragile. All right. So he's going out of business, or he's saying it's going to be tough. It is going to be tough, and it's going to go on a long time. But let me show you something. So everybody's talking about this thing, flattening the curve. The idea, the concept, as it has been explained to me a million times, I'm sure you've heard this yourself a million times. One scenario is do nothing. And in that scenario, you have a massive spike and the infection is over with, because at some point you're going to hit a certain number of the population that gets sick. And therefore there's no more people to get sick, or there's more herd immunity because of it. And so it's a rapid decline. This is what I imagine is happening in Italy right now. Now, this is it's really tough on an economy for sure, but flattening the curve, that means all this social isolation, that means people aren't going to T-Mobile stores to get cell phones. That means people aren't going to comic book shops to get comics. All of this kind of stuff that mitigates the risk so that the hospital system does not get overburdened, right? And that's what the little dotted line here represents. But what you're left with here, the whole point of it is that not that fewer people get sick. You're still going to get just as many people sick eventually. It's just that it's going to take a longer time for them all to get sick. And what does that mean? That means economic restrictions for a longer period of time. Now, again, I'm no expert, but there's no telling how long things need to be stretched out in order for the curve to be flat enough. I don't see how comic books in a brick and mortar store are going to be able to continue with this. Things are going to have to move online. I know that that's a dirty word, but you've got to find, if you're a comics retailer, you've got to find a way to add value online, get books to people. I'm telling you, it might even actually be a good time for something like that. Not something I want to try, that's for sure. But somebody out there, there could be online retail opportunities in this bleak time, because people can still get comics and read books. You know, it hasn't changed the love of comics. But brick and mortar, they were already in trouble. I don't see this getting fixed. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next quote here. Without a doubt, COVID-19 has already cost us tens of thousands of dollars in revenue with the cancellation of 2 local comic shows. Again, a whole other issue. The comic shows are not just about comics professionals. These conventions do really well for retailers. This is where retailers make money. If they're unable to do comic conventions, then they're stuck to just regular brick and mortar sales. And if they can't do brick and mortar sales, what other sales can they do? All right, Tomlin continues. Additionally, we've had 2 signing events canceled. All of this happened after we placed higher orders for those events. We are already taking over vendors and services we owe money to, so we can make arrangements. Yeah, so this gets tough, especially because some states are doing mandatory leave without pay. Let's see, after the 2 weeks, paid leave doesn't apply to small businesses. That's right. So they're not getting paid, and I know every state's different for what kinds of things that they're offering, and the federal government's got some stuff in the works. Overall, though, it doesn't matter if you get $1,000 in the mail, that's great, but that's nothing compared to the tens of thousands of dollars that would be lost by trying to keep a brick and mortar store open during a time when people just aren't going to be going into the stores, or just few enough people that it's not going to matter. All right, so he said they're trying to do proactive things he's scheduled a half off sale for Saturday, but then he's closing his doors starting Sunday to minimize public contact. So half off sale, that doesn't sound, what this sounds like to me is it's trying to get rid of as much as you can before you go out of business. That's what it sounds like. Okay, beyond that, he says that he's going to be having customers make appointments, no walk-ins anymore. And if you have to call ahead and make an appointment for you to come into a comic shop, brick and mortar retail can't accept walk-ins. Again, brick and mortar, like, what's the point of it? Don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming any of this on the comic book shop owner. It is a problem that he's been dealt. It's a business that, they've already been in. I'm just saying that it doesn't really make a lot of sense going forward. What do you do? I don't know. There has to be innovation. I feel for these small business owners. That's rough. All right, so he says we want people to feel safe and healthy, and closing feels like a responsible thing to do. The other thing too is that there will be mandates. I've already seen some. I think it was New York recently that mandated that certain stores close, like restaurants, bars, nightclubs. Those places are closed. If you owned one of those businesses, it's like the government enforcing that you don't do business. You can't do business. I just can't imagine how you're going to stay in business after something like that happens. All right, so it kind of goes on to say they're looking at new things like board games to help people pass the time. I'm interested if you could deliver, if you had a brick and mortar place and, advertise it that way, you would deliver games or deliver comics or something like that to doorsteps. I know not the business you signed up for, but there are people, there are families at home, I guess. I don't know. That's a thought. All right, they get on to Diamond Distribution, Free Comic Book Day. Guys, Free Comic Book Day is not happening May 2nd. There's no way. There's no way it's happening. All right, again, I'm not a professional, not a medical professional. I don't see that happening. All right, they bring up there will be restrictions, or if there are restrictions on delivery, things will get worse. This is, delivering product to their stores. Of course, that's going to be terrible. All right, I don't think I can go any further. There's not much, honestly, that could be done to keep brick and mortar alive. I think the problem is this weight, this burden of brick and mortar keeping the comics industry alive. It's become a burden. It's not a boon. There's got to be some other way to keep comics alive without brick and mortar. It's interesting, though, that all this is happening. I'm beside myself at how successful Cyberfrog 2 Wreck Planet has become in such a short period of time. These are comics, 363,000. It'll be more by the time you're watching this. That is an astounding amount of money. And, with quarantines and people being afraid and running on grocery stores and spending all their money on toilet paper, with the downed comic book industry, and things are struggling there, with everything, despite everything, this is a comic book online that is making over $350,000. I just cannot believe it. I mean, I knew this would be successful, but I'm blown away at how fast. Anyway, I don't want the discussion to be completely on make comics. Like you just be a comic creator, make comics and sell comics yourself. Obviously, that's important to the industry. I think it's important to the future. But beyond that, I think the other peripheral businesses that support this kind of action are important. They help the whole culture surrounding comics, and retailers have traditionally been part of that. So if there's more that could be done in that regard, to help other entrepreneurs add to the industry, if there's money to be made there, and ways for people to get books, retailers, I don't know, so forth. I just think that there's room to grow sort of this new industry. Anyway, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. If you have comments below, please do leave them. Check out Cyberfrog Wreck Planet 2. Check out Downcast Rise and Fall. And yeah, do let me know how little I know about medical stuff in the comment section below. I appreciate that. Let me know if you have any ideas going forward and what 2020 is going to look like for the comic book industry. I see things, I mean, they were bad before, but this is fatal. I'll be keeping an eye on it. Anyway, thanks, and I'll see you next time.